There's a wooden box sitting on the floor of my storage room. It has been sitting there for 11 years. Scrap cedar, 4 nails, open at both ends. I did not buy it. I built it in the time it takes to drink a cup of tea. It has no spring mechanism, no electronic component, no chemical inside it. What it has is a snap trap placed in its center, hidden in the dark, invisible to anything approaching from either end. 2 nights ago, in the corner behind the grain sacks, it caught a rat. Clean. Overnight. No poison left in the walls. No slow death somewhere I cannot reach. No smell coming through the floorboards 3 weeks from now. The pest control company in my town charges the equivalent of $400 a visit. They have been operating for 30 years. They used bait stations loaded with anticoagulant rodenticide and open-set snap traps placed in the middle of the floor. I have watched them work. I have never once called them. My name is Takeshi Mori. I grew up in the hill country of Niigata Prefecture, in a farmhouse my grandfather built before the war. Dirt floor storage rooms, cedar beams dark with decades of smoke, rice kept in wooden bins through winters that cracked the ground outside. I learned to read a rat's path the way some people learn to read a road. That is not a figure of speech. It is a skill, and someone taught it to me. In 31 years of keeping that farmhouse and its storage rooms, I have never lost a bag of stored rice to rats. Not one. Not a single bag. Here's what should bother you. The method that makes that possible cost almost nothing, takes less than an hour to set up, and has been sitting in plain view for longer than any pest control company has existed. The reason you have never heard it explained is not complicated. Let me get to it. But first, you need to understand the one thing almost everyone gets wrong about rats. Because if you miss this, nothing else I tell you will matter. The trap everyone trusts is the snap trap. You know it. Your father probably had a few in the shed, spring-loaded, baited, cheap, available everywhere. It has been the standard answer for household rodents for over a century, and it looks right. It feels like a solution. It does one thing only, and that one thing is announce itself. A rat is not a stupid animal. This matters more than most people want to admit. The Norway rat, the roof rat, the common house mouse. These animals have shared human living spaces for somewhere between 10,000 and 15,000 years, according to genetic and archaeological records. They did not survive that span by being careless. They survived by being deeply, almost pathologically suspicious of anything new in their environment. Researchers call this neophobia, a measurable, documented fear response triggered by unfamiliar objects, unfamiliar smells, any change in the familiar geography of a space the animal has already mapped. When you place a snap trap in the open, on the kitchen floor, in the corner where you saw droppings, you are placing a foreign object that smells of hardware store metal and your own hands in a space the rat already knows by memory. The rat approaches, stops, reads the new shape, smells the alien scent, and walks around it. Not because the rat is cautious in a general sense, because his nervous system is running a survival program that has been refined across 10,000 years of exactly this situation. You're not setting a trap, you're setting a warning sign, and so you check in the morning. Nothing. You move the trap. Still nothing. You try stronger bait. Peanut butter, dried fish, chocolate. Sometimes it works eventually. More often you check for 2 weeks and catch nothing. And by then the infestation has grown because the rat did not stop eating your stored food. It just stopped walking toward your trap. Here's the thing I want you to hold in your mind, and I will come back to it later. The rat is not afraid of the trap. It is afraid of anything that does not already feel like part of its world. That is the whole problem, and it is also the whole solution. Keep it in the back of your mind. Now let me translate my grandmother's understanding into the language of physiology, because what she knew as household habit, the modern researcher has since measured and confirmed. A rat running through a dark room at 3 in the morning is not moving randomly. It is following a fixed route. The same route, night after night, mapped along the baseboards, behind the storage boxes, along the back of the shelf. This is called thigmotaxis, a neurologically driven preference for maintaining body contact with a solid vertical surface while in motion. Open floor means visibility. Visibility means predator exposure. The wall means safety, and the rat's nervous system treats the wall as a guide rail it cannot voluntarily leave while foraging. This is why the open set trap on the kitchen floor fails so reliably. You placed it in the center of the room in open space, where the rat does not want to be in the first place. The rat is running the perimeter. Your trap is sitting in the middle of a zone the rat actively avoids. Now the riddle I planted earlier begins to open. The rat is not afraid of the trap. It is afraid of the open space surrounding the trap. Move the trap into the rat's preferred travel corridor, the wall, the baseboard, the back of the shelf, and capture rates improve. Field research from New Zealand's National Pest Management Program, which runs one of the most rigorously studied rodent control operations in the world, documented tunnel trapping outperforming open-set trapping by more than 300% across multiple seasons and habitat types. 300%. Same trap, same bait, same location, different enclosure. The enclosure is the mechanism. The tunnel removes the neophobia response, because a covered object along a wall does not read as new. It reads as shelter. The one thing a rat moving in the dark is always looking for. This is what my grandmother knew when she built a cedar box and put it in the corner. She did not know the word thigmotaxis. She did not need it. She knew the rat runs the wall and enters what feels like shelter, and she built shelter with a snap trap inside it. The physics are the same whether you know the term or not. Here is exactly what you build. A wooden box, open at both ends, roughly 30 centimeters long, 10 centimeters wide, 10 centimeters tall. The scrap lumber, old pallet boards, leftover cedar from a fence. It does not matter what kind, as long as it is rough cut and unfinished. Smooth, treated wood reads as manufactured. Rough wood reads as old, as part of the environment, as a thing that belongs. The interior must be dark when both ends face along the wall. That darkness is what draws the rat in. You place the box flush against the baseboard, both openings facing along the wall, parallel to it, not jutting into the room. The rat running the wall will enter one end without breaking stride, because entering a covered space along its travel path is the path of least exposure. You set the snap trap inside the tunnel, centered, with the trigger plate facing toward whichever end you expect the rat to enter from. You do not need elaborate bait. If you want to add something, a small amount of dried fish pressed into the rough wood of the floor, or a fragment of dried grain, not fresh, not strong smelling enough to carry across the room, just a trace that smells like the room itself. But even without bait, in my experience across 3 decades of keeping this method, the tunnel alone does the work. A snap trap inside a tunnel, set flush to a wall, will outperform a baited open trap set in the middle of the floor every single time, because you are working with the animal's neurology instead of against it. One more thing, leave it in place. Do not move it after 1 night or 2. Leave it for a full week minimum before you change anything, because an object that sits still long enough begins to smell like the room, and an object that smells like the room is not new. And what is not new does not trigger the fear response. Patience here is not optional. It is part of the mechanism. The knowledge did not vanish all at once. It thinned out slowly, the way a path through a field disappears. when no one walks it for a season. My grandfather's generation kept grain stores and understood rodent behavior the way they understood weather, as something you read and respond to, not something you pay someone else to handle. The traditional Japanese storehouse, the kura, those thick-walled, fireproof structures you still see on old farmsteads, was designed with rodent management built into its architecture. Specific wall gaps, specific floor junctions, specific dark corners where tunnel traps sat as permanent fixtures, the way a door hinge is a permanent fixture. This was not custom or ceremony. It was structural knowledge, passed from builder to builder, keeper to keeper. Then the countryside emptied. The young people moved to the cities for factory work, then office work, then the work that happens on a screen. The old houses were closed up or torn down. The kura became a curiosity, a photo subject for weekend tourists, and the people who understood the geometry of rodent movement, who could look at a storage room and say without thinking which wall the rat will run, which corner to put the box. Those people aged, and the ones who were supposed to learn from them were already gone. What filled the gap was product. The open snap trap first, sold in hardware stores with no instructions on placement because placement did not matter to the person selling the trap. Then the glue board, which works but leaves an animal dying slowly for hours. Then the poison bait station, which kills the rat inside your wall, where it decomposes for weeks in summer heat. Then the ultrasonic repeller, which multiple independent studies have found to produce no statistically significant reduction in rodent activity beyond the first day or two, yet continues to sell in enormous quantities because it requires no effort from the buyer. Then the monthly service contract, the quarterly visit, the annual fee for a truck that shows up and places the same open snap traps and bait stations your grandfather would have recognized in the same wrong locations for $400 a visit. Here is the arithmetic. A cedar box built from scrap wood costs nothing. A snap trap costs less than $1. The tunnel system outperforms the commercial bait station by every measure that has been studied. No one can patent rough-cut cedar. No one can sell you a monthly subscription to a wooden box. The knowledge was not locked in a vault. It was simply allowed to go quiet, because quiet does not generate revenue. The expensive product shouts. The cedar box sits in the corner and works. That is the only difference between them. Let me be straight with you now, because I said at the start I would be honest. And honest means telling you where the edges are. The tunnel trap is not a solution for an infestation that has already spread through the wall cavities, the ceiling, the spaces behind your cabinetry. If you are hearing scratching from inside the walls at 2 a.m, the tunnel is part of the answer, not the whole of it. You also need sealed entry points, steel wool packed into any gap wider than a centimeter, which is the documented threshold a mature rat can pass through. You need stored food in hard containers, not paper bags or cardboard boxes that a rat's incisors can breach in under a minute. You need the tunnel as a permanent fixture, not a temporary panic measure. That is the honest picture. And if you have small children or dogs in the house, the tunnel is safer than an open-set trap precisely because of its enclosure. A child's hand or a dog's nose cannot easily reach the snap mechanism inside a 10-centimeter wide box flush to the baseboard. That is not a side benefit. That is one of the reasons the old builders used the enclosure in the first place. Here is the whole system, short enough to remember. Build a wooden box, open at both ends, 30 centimeters long, 10 wide, 10 tall, rough-cut lumber. Set a snap trap inside, centered. Place the box flush against the baseboard, openings facing along the wall. Add a trace of bait if you want, but do not rely on the bait. Leave it for at least 1 week without moving it. Let it become part of the room, The rat will find it. There is a larger truth under all of this. The rat has lived alongside human beings for longer than any written record we have of human civilization. In all that time, the one thing that has reliably caught it is not a stronger poison or a more complicated mechanism. It is a more precise understanding of how the animal moves. Every difficult problem yields more to understanding than to force. The rat teaches this if you are willing to pay attention. Next time, I am going to show you what my grandmother kept in the storage room to stop rats from wanting to enter at all. A scent, not a trap, that cost almost nothing, and has been sitting in most kitchens this whole time. It is the logical step before the tunnel. Before you catch the rat, you make the space less inviting. That comes next. Until then, find your scrap lumber, build the box, set it flush to the wall, let it sit.